32. Cool. Just before I had some issues with desktop audio as well, like just a minute ago, but now I got it. Which is good, because it would have been really embarrassing if I'd started breaking down tunes and you couldn't actually hear what was going on. Hang on, I'll just get that down. Yeah, it would have been embarrassing if you couldn't hear the tunes I was breaking down. Cool, well thanks for joining. Especially for those in my time zone. It's a bit early for most people, it's just after 7 AM, so for me it's whatever. It is a bit earlier than when we usually stream, just because we have maintenance people coming into our house soon. Not soon, but like, you know, around the time I usually start streaming, so it's probably good if I, you know, let me just get that. Yeah, I've got a little light now, so now we won't drop as much frames. 11 PM, well, that's just as cozy as 7 AM, in my opinion. Yeah, we got a maintenance guy coming in around the time I usually stream, so, you know, that's kind of why 7 AM, so like 2 hours earlier. So before we go into the projects in question, a couple things. One, I really need to get my naming conventions better. And two, yeah, I know he did. I shared it all over my social media like a absolute fanboy. Which actually is the perfect tie-in to point two, which is the track project files are quite memory intensive. And even though I've got 16 gig RAM, I noticed that. Also, by the way, thanks for like the support. I saw that you were in that chat, and everything, and fucking huge thank you to Joe for actually like getting the EP into Inhuman's ears. So, yeah. Sorry, that seemed very blasé, but like I'm actually genuinely very thankful. I'm just very speechless as to the whole situation with that. But yeah, everyone look at that. Everyone look at that. Code Pandorum / Inhuman reacting to the EP with glowing reviews, so that's great. He mentions that he's going to upload it, I think, to YouTube or something in that stream, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, the project files are huge, and I can't guarantee my computer's going to like streaming and running these projects at the same time, because for some of you who understand my workflow, I use a lot of samples and lots of breeze flattening. I'm not so much intensive on MIDI these days. The most CPU demanding things, I suppose, is like automation, if that even like is much CPU intensive, which I'm pretty sure it is, because it's taking processing power as opposed to like recalling samples from like, you know, the drives. So yeah, I can't guarantee it'll run amazingly, but we'll pray. Third one is also my internet has been playing up again, but it seems like it's stabilized, which is good. Literally like half an hour before all this, it was you know what? The respaces aren't that bad, because my respaces mostly stay in MIDI, because I usually am tweaking stuff inside the patch, as you'll see in the projects. I've got like a bunch of my resas are still not flattened. They're just MIDI files with lots of crazy automation in really weird spots. Alright. And I guess like the final disclosure is one of these projects, like the actual file name, is called Malware Collab. Now Malware and I did have plans at one point last year sometime to possibly collab, but it fell through. And then I just kind of like took up the project that I had started and went with it, and then that's how the track Tension was made. This is gonna play a bit like a bit of a lecture, I suppose, because I have a few points I need to make about. I feel like I need to make a few points about the mentality behind the tracks, and not like the actual like like, oh, I wrote this to externalize a certain feeling. It's more of a like a production concept. This might seem very wanky and like really kind of cheesy, but if no one absolutely asked for me to talk about this, but I'm going to talk about it because it makes me happy. um, One thing I want to like drive home is this iteration of being able to like find the balance in a minimalistic track that doesn't use very much elements, but making sure it doesn't sound completely empty. Now, what I mean by that is, at what point is it too little, and at what point is it just like not little enough, I suppose. And these tracks were both, I guess, experiments in that. You saw that in the Instagram posts I made about, you know, the little like I guess blog bit thingies that I made talking about each track. But yeah, like again, like that's just kind of like a general sentiment of both of them. I am really keen to show you kind of how um, I executed it and what I think goes into making a minimalistic track that still, you know, has a lot of drive in it. Okay, rant over. So we'll start with this one, which is actually what Hidden started off as. Um, as the project file, as you saw it, sort of hinted at, it started off as a pad on pendulate, and then it just kind of got out of proportion from there. Um, like I said before, it's a track that I kind of designed with the idea of playing at a show, and like it's a really big epic intro piece, and that's like the main focal point of it, I find. To keep this project from completely compromising, I've tried freeze flattening a few things. I can see on my like task manager, it's like 6,190 megabyte of memory being used. See, that's just it resting. It's gonna have to like recall all those sounds. So I gotta like pick my moments with this. So I guess like the main thing, I'll get out of the way because like there's not really actually too many things to showcase. Like as you can see, the drums are very stripped back and minimalistic. There's a few layers with the snares. Like I believe this is all snare groups. And then percussive stuff is very, you know, sparse. And that's the drums. And you don't really need the drums to be that busy with something like this. So you have to kind of like create the drive and the impact in different ways. So as you know, in Hidden, it's very minimalistic in the drop. So the build up is kind of the impressive part, like the breakdown bit here, which is where the Reeses are. So the Reeses, they go like this. Let me just bring your attention to the fact that this is all of the processing on it. It's a very crazy sound, but it's got like such little amount of things going on with it. If you look at this filter, it's not doing much either. It's just saturating subbiness, pretty much, and like distorting it in very pleasurable ways. So like this saturator is giving it like a boost, some drive, some color. This overdrive is adding. It's on 3 dry wet. You could almost not notice it. I could probably turn it off and it might not make that much difference. But when you have it, so like you can't tell at this point. But if I was to like say take all of this off. Oh my gosh, control, no, shift, hello? Oh, it's because it's in the group, yeah. So, I'll leave these two on because they're not really coloring it very much. like that overdrive's actually still not really doing much. What are they? Yeah, wow, I just added an overdrive that doesn't do anything. That's incredible. Alright, well, EQ time. So the EQ was just to like carve out the gross low mids that you will no doubt run into when you design a respace. The EDM multiband compressor with lots of output. So all that grit's actually coming from this one saturator. Just with the sine fold. That's it on like extreme settings. That's a trick I abuse a lot whenever I'm making really subby stuff that still needs like resonant and harmonic energy. So again, if you're not familiar with my workflow, here you go. This is like the key. This is like a foundational skill you should learn, is how to like utilize the sine fold. And you know, it can be with any saturator as long as it's got like a, you know, a saturation curve like this. Because then if you don't want to even like give too much drive, you can do the G-Rex thing with it. The G-Rex peekaboo thing with it. More ATT, but I've squished the highs from the looks of it. And again, more output. Added a disperser for squish. In the mids, because it sounds kind of nice. An EQ again to clean it up. And that's what I'm talking about, with like, you always run into this issue with the low mids. So either get rid of it or like, you know, compress it, but I just like to get rid of it because I know I'm going to bring it back with a clipper. It's been pushed really fucking hard. And then I probably EQ'd it again with the, oh, mid-side, cool. Just make sure it's all, you know. And for some reason I put a limiter in there. I think that's just... It's probably to save this clipper from, you know, not doing fucking 8 to 10 dB of clipping. And then this reverb just rings it all out. And then the interesting little bits and pieces here is more just like good sample manipulation and placement. So like, yeah, very cool. That's respaces for you. I'll actually go into the vital patches. I won't just leave it there. But it's basic shapes. That's all it is. Basic shapes with a bit of this, a bit of that. It's really, it's more or less just what this is. Just like a microcosm of it inside the plugin itself. And as you saw, like, it didn't even matter because I, you know, chopped it at 120 hertz with a low pass. So you could almost say that, like, you know, this was kind of like an unnecessary step, but it kind of, you had to get through here to get to here kind of thing, I guess. Yeah, I've done literally last week. I just did I did a sound design stream on respaces. I feel like I don't need to keep going over the same things. All right. What else is interesting to talk about here? The fact my risers don't seem to be going is very interesting. Could it be because of... yes. I think... yes, okay, hang on. For my sidechain to activate, my things can't be frozen. And again, it's just the real beauty of this track is just in how this part contrasts that part. That's kind of the novelty of it. That's what sells you on it. Because if you actually go in here, there's really nothing to report back. This is the main wub. That's like 10 minutes of work, if anything. Like, that's all that is. It's like what? It's probably just a sine wave with some extra harmonics on it. Color the harmonics, EQ a bit, color the harmonics again, clip it, done. And then there's the actual sub, which is like a solid note almost. So yeah, it's really basic. I feel like I don't need to talk too much about this track other than like, conceptively what's going on here, which is the idea of contrast.
She's too weak.
I got my own glitches in there from old. This is from like an old sample pack I tried making. Except it's gonna need to be triggered because of the sidechain. Again, just really good, just learn to place your samples correctly. And manipulate them in interesting ways. I'm pretty sure I didn't just let these go. Like this one's it's been shortened and it's been texture warped, and same here, and that one's been left fine, but that's because it kind of falls into a flow, and same with this one, but it's got a filter on it. These all have processing on them. You don't just like leave the samples as they are. Try to like mangle them into something unrecognizable. Because, sometimes even just a little bit of filtering goes a long way with making a sound a bit more lively, more robust. Yeah, don't cheap out on things. Don't try to cut corners with it. People appreciate that stuff. Like this thing is like an FN sample, but it's like pitched up nearly 2 octaves. And it was originally this, which is not fun. Again, more like filtering. I mean, yeah, I have to. It's annoying when you use a gate, like a volume shaper, because sometimes it needs the input to be triggered. And then back here, it's more or less a bit of a copy paste. You just, again, process things slightly different. But keep some things familiar.
She's too weak. She's too weak.
That's one of my own samples. I believe that was from me talking to my microphone and making stupid noises, which is pretty fun. I've talked about it before. It's called the EDM Talk Box, which is literally just a couple of OTTs, a Serum Effects, and a really terrible USB mic that I'm talking into right this minute. And then you just hit record and you make as many weird noises as you want. Again, that's like, I've covered that before in depth in other streams, so I might not go into it unless you guys really want me to reiterate it. But yeah, that's hidden. And again, like this isn't to, pull the curtain back and take all the magic away from the track. It's actually I really, really enjoy what I was able to achieve with this thing. I think I struck quite a good balance with like the atmospheric, but also the aggressive tones of the track in the drop. I just really want to drive home the point of like, at what point do you lose drive? And I think that happens when I guess it happens when predictability occurs, like when things are way too predictable. again, like this is, you know, just quarter note, not quarter note, like quarter note triplet wubs, but like it's always punctuated by interesting fills. Like it's predictable, but it's not too predictable. You can anticipate things, but you can't anticipate everything, and that's the novelty of it. And especially, it's a nice reprieve from the insanity of like basically what is ostensibly a sound design flex. Same here, like again, this is like more or less kind of the same group, copied over, but I've changed modulations in the respaces. So yeah, contrast, everything, you know, contrast complexity with simplicity, contrast predictability with unpredictability, and you've got yourself a really interesting song. So that's hidden. Is there any questions at all? I'm sure you would have arced up by now. And don't ask me what my favorite WWE wrestler is. I already got like a couple reactions from like from sharing that code P's reactions, and people caught on to the person who was asking for like the WWE wrestler favorite. And they were just asking me, and I'm like, I don't know, Brock Lesnar. I haven't watched wrestling since I was like in like primary school, so I don't actually know what's up. I'm trying to think of like a wrestler though. Well, all of this like recalls because I think it's oh, is it gonna crash? Oh, Jesus. All right. So, Sin Cara. Sorry, I was like just thinking about it. I'm hoping this is it. Yep. I also need to, my project does this really fun thing where with this convolution reverb, you have to like set it back so it's not reverby. All right, Tension. Tension started off as a collab that I pitched to Malware, but things fell through. No fault on either of us. We were both just busy. I then took the track to whatever direction it's in now, and now it's complete. So I guess I'll go through the intro because this one has a bit more going on in its arrangement. It was made later than Hidden. I think Hidden was actually made like this time last year, which is kind of cool. Yeah, let's go through the intro first. I remember distinctly making this. It's just a, you know, it's a thing I made in Iris, and then I just added some Redux to it later that automates. Oop. Clumsy me. Thank you. Let's see if I can find those horror strings actually. It's probably this one, isn't it? No, but that's a thing. Look at presets. You might find something cool. Let's see. Is it this? I don't actually know what that is. Oh, it's a sidechain for the percussion. Ah, this would be it, actually. Yeah. It's just a siren noise. It's just a siren noise. With a really good reverb on it. That's all you need, baby. The percussion's actually pretty cool as well. I'll solo the percussion. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You. So the idea is spread it all out. Oh, yeah, that's right. This is actually kind of cool. This is why you should get Rift, because they have really weird filters on it. Because they carve out the rhythm for you. Really easy way to chop a vocal. And I'm guessing I've totally made something quiet. I don't know about you guys, but I get very, very messy with my projects, and it's very... Yeah, it just says it's just a dream. Is it... Well, that's fantastic. I turned the drums off. Yeah, that intro I feel like didn't really need much explanation. It's just if you can't, don't overcomplicate it, because as you saw, the elements I had in there were not very overproduced. I think the really good tell of a producer is like when they know when to and not to. Yeah, clean layering, and also just knowing when you've done enough on said layer. I found that people, when they start out, if they're producing, let's say, and they're working on vocals, the vocals will be like over compressed, and there'll be too many layers, or there won't be enough layers, but like the one layer is being like, it's got so much processing on it that it just loses its quality. You don't get it as much with dance music, I find. You can overcomplicate a mix and make it muddy, but that's not exactly the same as overproducing. If anything, you have to learn how to like underproduce as a dance music artist. You have to learn to like, produce like a normal engineer, because like there's so many like rules that used to be in place that we just fucking throw to the wayside. Especially, I think, surrounding certain practices of like clipping and compression. And the cool thing is that you've got the same sample, but you put it into a different context and it has a completely different energy to it. The context being it has an 808 instead of it. So things I will note that you might want to know about. This bit here is just Ableton's wavetable with like crazy resonances. Sorry, I'll actually look at the chat and see what you guys are saying. A lot of dubstep isn't music. Dubstep music isn't for you, but you like my deep atmospheres. Oh, thank you. Duck buddy. And Foghorn Deep Dub, yeah. More like scraping metal, trap music thing. It's a weird line for you because you like making danceable tunes, but you like doing different things with it. And a lot of it sounds similar after a while. Yeah. You have to adhere to the tropes, but you have to make sure you don't overuse the tropes. And you don't, you know, operate too safely in those tropes. Because music is formulaic by nature, and genres are formulaic as well, and it's really easy to just get caught up and just tick all the boxes for what makes the genre, like makes the music the genre. I guess trap music has a little bit more flexibility than dubstep, sort of. Like there'll be similarities in like drum patterns and stuff in trap, but what you do with them is completely up to you. For example, I could have added so much more things in here to like fill the space. By some people's metrics, this is probably an empty mix. This isn't even a complete song. It's got these breaks with silence in them. But like you said, you really enjoy the atmospheres and the the way it's sort of delivered to you, and it makes sense. It makes sense in context to the context that I've constructed around those tropes, I guess. To be an absolute like pseudo academic about it. Anyway, back to these cool race bases. This is literally, what's that? That's like a, that's just a layer with like some noise that's been distorted and filtered and then chucked through a vocoder. That's been pitched up and then EQ'd for resonance, and then has a limiter on it that's not doing anything. But yeah, again, this was like what I was saying before with the Vital one. It's just like a lot of, realistically, this isn't much different than like what I had in the box of the Vital. I've just got this, and I've made a couple of these wavetable races. I think I made them on a stream like months ago, but it's really good fun. And you can do so much with it. Like, what have I moved this? Just to, hang on, I have actually. Suddenly, like, Casket Marauder. Deep stuff before it's not easy for you. No, it's not easy for many people. I'm also going to turn this light off because I don't need it anymore. Because the sun's coming through. Look, even I still find making deep stuff difficult, like certain deep things. It's just I apparently make my own style of it in an attempt to make the like stylings of it, I guess. Like, I'll go, okay, I know how to make a deep tune, and I'll make something, and I'm like, that's not what a deep tune should be, but then everyone around me is like, that's a deep tune, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's just deep bass music, I guess. Very shabby bass music. But yeah. Not much going on there. Same here. This is almost like, it's almost like this. Slightly different filtering positions and no reverb. And then same over here. Slightly different again. this is just like from a splice pack. That's what I made like the main theme of this, is like rubbing metals and scraping cymbals and stuff like that. I wanted that to be like the main sort of, I guess, element in the drop, and that's what makes things very interesting. Yeah, I should probably mention the hi-hats actually. After the first 8 bars, if you want to keep the drive going, because I feel like if you did it for 16 bars without hats, it gets very boring. And not having the same drum feel makes the difference as well. But once I added hats, keeps the drive. It almost opens the track back up. Now, this next bit is probably what people would normally expect from like this, like, I don't know, most people would probably say this would be like the drop, and I'm going to repeat this section, but I felt that this didn't stand well alone unless it had the context of that more sparse section, so we've got this now. Hey, you want to know something fun? This is a Virtual Riot sample. Uh-oh. It's probably one of my favorite samples in the entire, like one of my favorite actual riffs in the entire project. Just like on a tonal and technical like standpoint. So we've got, yep, auto filter, automation. This is kind of cool. I messed with the input shift, the input pitch shift, in the spectral resonator, which it's probably the only thing I really touch other than like this frequency knob. Because it's almost kind of like the formant filter, but I don't know, it pitch shifts it, I guess, instead of like moves it around in like a formant filter kind of way. And so if you just control that, it's almost like, again, the filter opening up and down. And then of course there is the actual formant filter itself of the vocoder, just doing its thing. Yeah, a bunch of different automations just for one sample, but it really sells it. This was one I made for a sample pack. This was a respace I made with Vital. Just a sustained note. What else do we have? Ellie Dirtface. Hey look, wavetable respaces again. This one was great too. And what I think I'm doing here is, yeah, so like it's got this bit being pinched. And then to make the sub kind of glide, I'm literally just scanning through with the filter with a peak. And that does all I needed to do. That's kind of cool as well. More samples from myself. This one was more EDM talkbox stuff. Again, Virtual Riot sample. Yeah. When it comes back, I just I bring back the It's Just a Dream sample. Just a slightly different rhythm. for this familiar build-up. And now it's just got slightly more drums in it, but it does that much of a difference in how it sounded compared to this. Oh, that would have been cool. Scream from an ASMR reaction video. That's amazing. I love hearing the funny little stories that go behind certain samples. I think it does a lot to humanize them a bit, even though they're completely synthetic. Yeah. Again, just reiterating, this is how I would do minimalism. Like, this was a good experiment in minimalism, it turns out, because people really like these tunes, which is very, 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 like, that makes me very grateful, I guess. Don't make it busy with your drums at the start. Don't do it old enough. Just understand. Go in with a plan, I guess. Understand what your plan is. And try to keep to that plan. Unless it's not working, then change it. It just happened to have worked with me. I would say that the thing that clued me into making something like this would be Subs by Yuki. That, I think, is probably what like led me to it. So having enough reference material of like this is kind of what I want it to be like, but here's how I'm going to make it different, is a very good way of thinking about it as well. And when it comes to something like minimalism and minimalistic bass music, seeing what people can get away with is a good place for you to start, and then you can test to see if it works by adding or subtracting where needed. Screaming at a man for chewing with the mouth open. Oh my god. You just want to throw your headphones at that point, wouldn't you? Yeah, that's the Tension EP. I wish it was a bit more like, in depth, and I could like really dig right into like the nitty gritties, but there's really not much to it. Even the drums. Again, it's like 3 snare layers. There's like a spring reverb that automates every so often, which is a nice little effect to break up things. Changing snares as well is also a good idea. So I talked to Squire about this one day. Having a like A and B snare is a really good idea. It creates a bit of a seesaw, so there's a bit of like a drive and rhythm there that is kind of like the undertow of the track. I'm pretty sure there is one in here that is slightly pitched different. There you go, literally by a semitone. You wouldn't even notice. You barely notice, but I notice. I know, I probably only notice because I'm like, this is something I'd probably do. And then we got the spring verb here. That's another thing too, is like play around with like where things sit on the frequency spectrum. If your snares usually sit in those nice, like, resonant, like, low MIDI fundamentals, maybe try making one that is literally just the mids and the high mids and nothing else. With this one, I used a bit of that. I think I still kept. See, I used like a Foley sample of a cockpit opening, apparently, as well as like what appears to be a finger snap. Some sort of like, again, Foley, and then another Foley, I think. Like a little tick, that means a rim snare. You showed another Australian-based music producer. Oh, thank you. That's very kind of you. I'm glad I'm just, yeah, I'm still blown away by the fact people are enjoying it. I didn't expect it to do as well as it has, and I keep saying that on social media and to my friends, and like, yeah, it's very humbling. It, it came when it needed to, actually. It was a very important time for it to actually, for me to really get that warm reception. I really needed it. Alright, well, it's only been just under an hour, but that's kind of it, really. I mean, I could talk about. I tried compressing, I tried doing side chaining a bit differently. I was trying out Duck Buddy. Pretty happy with it. I still need to use it more. I still default to Gatekeeper because it's just there as my template. Um, yeah, Duck Buddy's pretty good. It's a bit. I'm so much slower at it because Gatekeeper is literally just the one, and you got to make one for your snare and your kick. But um, it can help slot them in quite well, and I like some of the visual feedback you can get from the oscilloscope built into it. So that's really good. Thank you, guys. Was Low High the first label I thought about sending the tracks? Low and High sent me an offer. They were like, "We really enjoy your music. Do you have anything sitting around?" So I just had these tracks. I mean, like I said, I've had hidden in my like demos for it would be just about a year almost. And Tension, I think I had maybe 6 months. I don't know. I can't remember when I started working on this. Oh, well, it started off as a mount. Yeah, maybe like 6 to 10 months or something. So, like, they've been sitting around for a while. It's just they weren't doing anything. Big time now labels approach me instead. I mean, it's happened before. That's what happened with Base Planet Collective. They had their eye on me for a bit and they asked. Full Flex now asks me if I want to feature on certain things sometimes. But that, like, the thing with Full Flex though is because we've actually built a relationship, like a working relationship. So that's what that is. Yeah, cool. Well, I guess like another thing to take away from this is get as weird as you want, and you can never predict what people are gonna like. So you might as well make things that you're going to like because you can at least predict that. And it seems like it's paying off. And also, just on that, um, I find that people will like things they like, but they might. I feel like sometimes you can kind of sense that they don't believe it, like they don't believe that they like it. If that makes sense, I don't want to like fucking gaslight people or something, be like, you don't believe in it, but um, yeah, it's weird when like labels that you like, hello, we're Bing Bong Music, we have a MySpace account, and it's like what? Um, but yeah, I find that sometimes people are like, I really enjoy this thing, and then it's like, I mean, through no fault of their own, it just doesn't sound like like, I see what you mean. Yeah, Bing Bong Music Group, Bing Bong Audio. Everyone just go to Full Flex Audio and force their hand to change their name to Bing Bong Audio. That'd be incredible. We're all lying. The tracks actually suck. Mm, mm. Yep. Well, you know what? It made me feel good, so I'm going to take that lie and keep it as a chip on my shoulder. All right. Well, I think that might do it for now. Um, Tomorrow we'll do sound design, hopefully. I'm going into Melbourne today to meet up with a couple of friends. Um, Hopefully I'll be back by tomorrow morning. One called Last Action. Problem there was a lot of things that should... Gore noise label. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Also, that's another thing. Make sure you do your research on like a label. Make sure that you know what they're about as much as they know what you're about, and see if you can actually meet halfway. Anyway, yeah, that's me for the day. Uh, for now. Tune in tomorrow. We'll make some cool noises. All right, thanks everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I'll make sure I upload this VOD to like YouTube or something in case people want to go back at it. I'm not going to look up gore noise. All right, thanks everyone.